Hey, this is Tarence Lauchié, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this podcast, The Growth Exchange. This podcast was designed to curate conversation, dialogue, and monologue around all things growth. I believe that everything living has the potential to grow into its fullest and most maximal potential. So let's grow. Hey, welcome to Season 2 of the Growth Exchange podcast. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié, elated at the opportunity to come to you, and hopefully you are liking, sharing, following, and using this material, this content for your own personal growth and development. Remember, the Growth Exchange podcast was designed to address all things growth from a personal, professional level, spiritual, financial, social, even in our families. We all need to grow, and I'm a firm believer that anything living can grow and maximize its fullest potential. Speaking of such, this episode is going to highlight and accent a project that I have been working on now for quite a while. I think it's been close to 10 years ago. I wrote a book entitled Maximize Life Lessons of a Champion. And Volume 1, I indicated that it was Volume 1 because I knew that Volume 2 was coming. Well, Volume 2 is here. And Life Lessons of a Champion was dedicated specifically to topics or subjects relating to some of the challenges that I had overcome up to that very moment. In fact, when I wrote the book, it was as a challenge to myself to live long enough to publish. And I accomplished that. And of course, I'm still alive. And so are you. So I want to continue to inspire in some kind of way. I don't believe that what I produce as a trainer, as a professional development coach, is motivational. And I have to qualify that because I was talking to someone a little earlier about motivation and being held accountable. While they seem to be similar, they're different. To be held accountable is to render yourself accountable to someone or in a way that they can hold you to what you say. But motivation is when something inspires you from an internal perspective. Most of the time, people will classify professional development trainers, speakers, and keynote addressers as motivationalists. And I don't necessarily like that term for me, because if I can motivate somebody, I can also be responsible for demotivating them or being a contributor to their lack of motivation. I really believe that it comes from the inside. If I were to respond to the question, what motivates Tarence Lauchié? Well, I'm motivated by watching other people grow and seeing practical and as well as tactical elements being implemented so that people will be able to accomplish what they set out to accomplish, the goals that they have for their lives, their ambition, their life callings, their purposes, whether it's in business, in ministry, in education, in medicine, whatever the field. It's inspiring for me to help inspire people to reach to those heights. So that's what Volume 2, Maximize Volume 2, is all about. Now, I'm not on here to sell books or anything. I do want to share something from a few of the chapters, but I believe my last solo presentation to you as an audience was centered around leadership. I mean, that's really at the backdrop of my motivation is to develop leadership in people and to help inspire leadership to come forth, whether it's in that home, whether it's on that job, whether it's in your own business. There are some entrepreneurs that tune into this on a regular basis, and they can use some of these tips and strategies to be their own boss. It's always good to be your own boss as opposed to regretting the boss that you have. And if they're one and the same, then there's a lot more work to do. Let's look at Maximizing Volume 2. Subtext for this particular manuscript is leveling up. And the book is being written from two perspectives. Personal growth, personal and professional growth, but then also a faith-forward type leadership, faith-forward. Now, those two come together much like I've seen with some of the other world-renowned teachers, trainers, motivationalists like John Maxwell or Stephen Covey or Dennis Waitley or Les Brown. These individuals are people who have used their unapologetic faith. I mean, all the way back to people like Zig Ziglar, who many, many years ago somehow tied his ability to communicate his faith with inspiring people to do better with their lives, in sales in particular. And he was known for that. In fact, he worked with multi-level marketing projects and firms, companies for many, many years, making a lot of people a lot of money by inspiring them and then helping them to identify with what they believe. So within this plethora of of material, these chapters, is a challenge to level up. In maximizing your leadership, you're leveling up to what your potential is. You're also being challenged to have a faith-forward type of leadership. There are many different kinds of leaders. We know that to be true, that there are lots of different leadership styles. I'll share something from the forward. I indicated that in this book, the second volume, it moves us from personal breakthrough to sustained impact. Leaders are not only formed by moments, they are formed by disciplines. The aim of this work is simple. It is to help you keep growing after win, to build a life in leadership that lasts. So what you'll hear in my voice, or the tenor of this project, would be stories, short stories throughout the pages that seem to move the needle on, oh, that's nice, but what else? Oh, that's nice, but what else? Oh, that's good, that was inspiring, but what else? And I always want to keep the reader inspired to read on or to take some of the practical steps at the end of each chapter. It's accompanied by a workbook that can be used to help hold yourself accountable in taking strategies to maximize your leadership and leveling up on the full potential that you have. So volume 1 was a charge or call to awaken the champion. The life lessons of a champion is what it was subtext. But volume 2 equips the champion, or it equips the reader with tools and strategies for leveling up by grace, to use their gifts to become everything that they were entitled or called to be. So when I mentioned that different types of leadership that exist, I talk about the fact that leadership is an ability to inspire and influence. Remember, it's influence, nothing more, nothing less. I always add the ability to inspire because that's what I do. It's an effort to help people to achieve a common goal. If I'm a leader of a team, let's say in a manufacturing organization, or let's say a medical supply company, and I'm working with salespersons, my objective or my motive is not just to sell product. It's for me and the individuals that I lead to have the same passion toward achieving goals, and not just putting food on my table, but also putting food on the table of many, many other people. So there are multi-levels or multi-dimensions to the whole idea of leadership and different leadership styles. I really do look at leadership as being sacred. I look at it as being a sacred calling that we respond to. We all have the propensity to do it, but some people literally respond to the call of leadership in their lives, and they take it into various directions. It is also very hinged upon their talents and their capacity or tenacity and their ability to function in settings that might challenge them in a lot of different ways. So leadership really becomes a catalyst or an opportunity center for people to become everything that they can be and learn more about themselves while helping others to achieve. Now, that might seem like a repetitive statement, but let me show this to you. Effective leadership is crucial for organizational success, which means that mission as well as vision, both of them are realized or actualized when true effective leadership is in motion. For an employee, the engagement with their teams, the motivated, empowered environments, or the culture of the space has everything to do with individuals taking their own responsibility to grow personally, but also embracing the vision that has been cast from effective leaders. So it kind of encircles each other. That effective leadership hinges upon people being personally responsible for their personal leadership. And personal leadership, of course, is fed or fueled by those who are effective in providing good leadership. Bottom line, we all have to level up. Bottom line, that whether we are the leader or the employee, whether we are the staff or the supervision, whether we are the CEO, or whether we are the individual who has just entered the organization, we all have a responsibility to leveling up in order to reach that common goal, to make it very, very clear. The success factors that I list or talk about in the chapters of the book include, of course, vision, because clear vision and direction of purpose is vital when we're talking about leadership, whether personal or organizational. Communication, that's a very interesting element, because most people think that they're communicating just because they're talking. Just because you're talking and I hear you doesn't mean that it's an effective communication process. Really, communication requires a two-way transaction that involves a sender, of a message, the message itself, and then the receiver of the message. When the receiver receives the message, they then somehow translate, or they somehow break down or dissect the message in and of itself, and then they send feedback of either agreement, disagreement, maybe query for more questions or answers to questions. And in some cases, there's noise, there's dissonance, there's this cognitive disconnect between what is being communicated and what the person receives. So I get into that quite deeply. I also talked about adaptability and trust being first and foremost of the two. In building this concept or idea of trust, you develop an assurance that the organization's goals are going to be met, or your individual goals are going to be met. We'll have to trust somebody. We'll have to trust people. We'll have to trust systems, and we'll absolutely have to trust the process. So that moves us to adaptability. Adaptability is discussed in the chapters because being able to be flexible enough to adapt to certain situations. I remember the days of COVID. That wasn't too long ago, but it was more than 5 years ago that we were on lockdown, or everything was electronic, or it was remote based. And now we're back interconnecting with people, but we learned some valuable lessons and picked up some tools because we adapted. Another word for that adaptability would be the ability to pivot. Also discussed in the chapters is, of course, the accountability element that I mentioned previously. Accountability is not just answering to someone. Accountability is making yourself vulnerable to let someone help you to reach your goal, to let someone walk with you in the journey, to let someone share in the process as well as the productivity of your journey. So those are interesting enough to make you want to get a hold to this, but I want to share some more things with you in just a few seconds here. Let me pause and let me ask you a question. What have you set out to do this year that's different than last year? I'm not asking for your resolutions. I'm not asking for you to say, oh, I promised myself that I would. My challenging question is, what are the overall objectives for this year that are a part of the overall objectives for next year, the following years, all the way through to the end of your lives? Think for a moment that those who are usually successful begins with the end in mind. I believe that that's the Stephen Covey principle, beginning with the end in mind. Well, I believe that our Creator, God Himself, looked far into the future of our existence, and He created a timeline of which we were to be inserted. So the year that you were born was your debut in the timeline of God's master plan and His overall creation. There's this plan for us to prosper and be in health, even as we prosper in our souls, our innermost being. And I'm a firm believer of that. So I always, whenever I'm faced with challenges or whenever I see a scenario or a situation that doesn't seem to be as clear, I ask myself the question, how does this fit into the big picture of things? What are the overall objectives? What's the big picture goal here, and not just the small picture goal? Now, of course, we can do smaller objectives to reach larger goals over time, but sometimes when we zoom out and we look at our whole lives, we then are challenged with answering the question, what am I trying to accomplish here? What do I really want to do in my life? And so I have a quote here that I think is going to be inspirational enough to inspire you. Nothing is ever lost when it's been given over to God. It simply becomes a lesson. So that means even in our trials and our temptations of trying to make a success out of our lives, sometimes setbacks are setups. Sometimes what appears to be failures are really the forward to a wonderful collection of chapters for the future. So when we think about what we're being challenged with, we could embrace it as an opportunity to level up. We could embrace it as an opportunity to become everything we were designed to be by implementing strategies and using our time, our talents, our treasures, our tactics, and even trust the process. Trust the fact that God, our Creator, knew exactly what He was doing when He put you in the position that you're in life, your station. And if you're a believer, He's with you. If not, I strongly suggest looking into what it means to get closer to the owner who created the owner's manual, who created the product. We are the product of God's creations. We are literally a reflection of everything that he wants in the earth. And you have the potential to maximize that, you and I both. And so I strongly encourage you to think about what motivates you to get it done. Go for it, develop strategies, of course, but also access resources and tools to level up. So as we conclude this particular episode, the first episode of 2026, I would encourage you to tune in and to listen to the dialogues and the conversations that we will be having. I know next episode, the episode that's queued up for discussion next month, is going to be powerful. Be encouraged to know that there's always something that we can do to improve upon, but we all have the capacity to grow. So let's grow. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié with the Growth Exchange Podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Growth Exchange. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié. It's been a pleasure to have these conversations and dialogues with our guests. If you notice, one thing we all share in common, and that is the ability, the desire, and the potential to grow and maximize our fullest potential. So keep tuning in. Share this with somebody, like it, maybe even invite somebody. And if you'd like to be a guest, contact us with the information that's here and available for you. Let's grow.